What if technology, software programs, and drugs are today's form of magic, spells, and pharmakeia? Any sufficient advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Arthur C. Clarke. What is your opinion of the world today? And what does this Bible have to say? Christianity. Welcome to the show. Now, before I start the show, I just want to point out a few things. This show is a show that talks about fringe topics with a Christian point of view. So if that offends you, please turn it off now, and you don't have to be offended. Okay, so this week's show is more of a theory analysis, I guess. Something I thought about that I wanted to kind of just go down that rabbit hole, just to kind of, I guess, verbally analyze the theory I have and other people have had. For it's not just me in this whole world that thinks this way, that technology and software programs and drugs are basically today's new form of magic, spells, and pharmakeia. And that's just something I've thought about this in the past, and I didn't know really how to put it all together to even have a coherent thought or to talk about it with anybody or to describe it. So I guess I'll just do it on this show just because it's an interesting topic. I'm not saying everybody who's using an iPad or a laptop or a cell phone is, a sorcerer or doing all this stuff. It's just a thought that maybe the people behind these things who created them might have had this in mind when they created these things. Or maybe they didn't have it in mind at all, and maybe they were actually being led to make these things without even actually knowing it, like a puppet, So that's kind of the route I'm going to go down. And just please bear with me, because this is kind of a deep, hard topic to really talk about even. And please have patience with me. And just because I mention magic or sorcery or any of that stuff does not mean that I'm endorsing it or I am saying to do such things, okay? But it talks about in Deuteronomy 18:10 through 12, that there shall not be found among you any one that maketh his son or daughter pass through the fire, or that useth divinations, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a counselor with familiar spirits, in other words, talking to ghosts, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God will drive them out from before thee. So I just wanted to get that across to everyone before someone attacks me, because I've been attacked in the past for just, stating my opinions or whatever. Apparently I'm paid off by groups out there. I wish they would actually send their money, because I never actually receive any money from anybody. So I'm just basically funding this myself, so I don't know what these people are talking about. Apparently I'm a false teacher now because I've exposed darkness, and I did YouTube videos with things that are kind of graphic, even though I pointed out that it's not good for you to watch this if you have a weak stomach or you're offended easily. So apparently I made them watch that stuff or listen to whatever I say, and they have no choice but to listen. So then they have no choice but to hate me and make bad comments and attack me. So I'm just saying right now that I am a Christian. I worship Jesus Christ, who is the Lord. I don't work for the Democrats. I don't work for the Republicans. In fact, I don't really choose a side, because I don't think Jesus did. Okay? Jesus chose the side of truth, which is the same side I choose. So I just want to get that off my chest before there's another attack or any spiritual attacks out there, because I know some people have probably been doing spiritual attacks because, you expose spirit cooking, and ironically, not too shortly afterward, things go bad for you. Seems like a curse in itself. Okay, that is said, that's done, that's over with. I'm not going to mention it again. Getting to the show. Genesis 6 and the first book of Enoch, I think I say those two phrases thousands of times a year on this show. I don't know. It just seems like those lines get said way too much on this show. So anyway, but they really talk about some serious stuff in those two parts of the book of Enoch and the Bible. So anyway, basically those two books really talk heavily about fallen angels. And the book of Enoch really talks about specifics. Fallen angels, they taught enchantments, root cutting. Specifically, those things, well, they taught many other things like abortion and all this other stuff. But it's very interesting that back in the day, before the flood, that 200 fallen angels came down and they started teaching men. It's not enough that Satan in the Garden of Eden had already gotten humans to sin and have a fallen nature. Then, fallen angels, having free will, decided to sin against God and leave their first estate, as the Bible says. And then they started teaching humans things that were not supposed to be taught to us. And because of those things that they taught us, which were a form of technology, and even the old story of Prometheus, he stole fire from the gods, whatever. It's, in my book, it's just God. Anyway, but it's a metaphor, I believe, for Prometheus is kind of like another version of Lucifer, in a sense, who gave knowledge to Adam and Eve, whereas Prometheus took fire and gave it to, us little cavemen, basically. So anyway, but that was a form of technology. The fire was. And I believe Prometheus might have even actually existed because he could have been a fallen angel. I don't know if he was one of the 200 watchers that fell. I don't know. I just know that some of the old gods, the mighty men of old, the men of renown, whatever, in the Old Testament, were considered the giants, or, I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff that's there. It could have been giants, could have been this, whatever. All I know is the old gods, Zeus and all those, might have been fallen angels. Okay? And that is, today in movies, they heavily beat you over the head with these old gods, because I think Hollywood worships the old gods far more than they worship Jesus Christ and the God, the creator, the one who actually created dirt, planets, everything, They don't want to worship him. They just want to worship the fallen ones, because if they worshipped him, then they might have to not sin, because he speaks against sin specifically. But anyway, getting to the point, these things were happening back then. And I mean, here's an interesting point. I think I got this from, I don't know, I think I heard this on a show from Dr. Future, actually, somewhere along the way. I wrote this down a long time ago, so bear with me. Anyway, Isis was the early goddess of magic in Egypt, Greece, Rome. She freed her brother, Osiris, from underwater by means of her magical rituals. See, that's really interesting. She used magic almost like a tool to bring somebody back, okay? So she used magic almost like a technology or something with a purpose, She's using it. Okay, that's just one little, thing. And like I said, I probably got that from Dr. Future because I used to listen to that show like crazy. So he's one of the people that really got me into this whole fringe Christianity thing to begin with when I listened to his show. And many other people will say the same thing because that guy led a lot of people in the right direction. So anyway, my point is people use spells, curses, and all these things. It's almost as if like it's just a tool. It's a means to get to an end result, right? Which is, obvious. I'm not trying to talk to you like a preschooler, but it's just, I have to say this because it's just, I have to talk myself through this to try and understand it myself sometimes. But anyway, and we use computers today as a means to do our work, to do things. And computers are even used for evil things, spying on you, software that secretly spies on you all the time. I mean, the eye in the sky, the whole, surveillance state, all of that stuff is being used against you all the time. I honestly believe that in the end times, which we're pretty much there, I believe, they're using these things as sorcery against us because what they're doing is they're finding out all our little secrets on the internet, right? And they're keeping track of all of this in this giant global brain. This AI system, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, it's all being stored in a giant database, and it's going to be used against every one of us at some point. I honestly believe that because they have already used data against senators, just congressmen, everybody, to like lead them. You always hear about, this guy's getting fired because, they found, so many files of child pornography on his computer. Well, nothing makes your character look bad and makes you easily lose your job than that, right? Even though it might not be true, because we don't actually see the evidence. We don't physically see it, okay? So we really don't know. And that in itself is another form of magic sorcery right there, because they're basically putting a magical spell over our eyes so that we kind of see things in a different way than reality sometimes. And that in itself could be considered magic or sorcery. That's just something I think about sometimes, Because if you look at the Bible, okay, here's what it says, okay? I'm just going to read the little line. In Revelation 18:3, to be exact, so you can look it up in the Bible, it says, "For by your sorcery all nations were deceived." And it's talking about the corporations and the governments, or the kings or whatever, of the earth, using sorcery to deceive the whole world. All the nations were deceived. So, yeah, the whole world. And if you look up the word in Greek, sorcery, it's actually pharmakia. Pharmaceutical drugs, I don't know. It's drugs, okay? It means and includes the use of drugs of any kind for magical effect. You ever wonder why there's people eating people's faces off? You ever wonder why you just hear these random, strange stories where people just eating people just suddenly out of the blue? You don't hear any drugs abuse or anything. They just, one day, this guy just decided to go down the street and eat somebody's face off. The pharmaceutical industry in this country is just the most overwhelming, powerful. It's just, they want everyone on drugs, on some kind of drug. And I'm not saying if you have to take a drug, you're some kind of a demon or whatever, okay? I mean, look at the symbol. Look at the symbol for pharmaceuticals. It's like two snakes wrapped around a staff with wings on it. I mean, nothing to me speaks fallen angel more than that. I mean, doesn't that just seem a little strange if you look at that and go, hey, why is there two snakes, two serpents, like, in the Garden of Eden, wrapped around a staff, and it's got wings on it, like bird wings? And also, why does, like, Hollywood movies today, like the movie Thor, Doctor Strange, all these movies basically say that science is no different than sorcery and magic. They're really showing this heavily. And here, I'll play you a clip. This is from Doctor Strange, because I had to put this in here because this really sums up the agenda that we're being taught and our kids are being taught today in movies. This is a superhero, Doctor Strange. So listen to what a sorcerer from India is teaching him because he wanted higher knowledge.
The language of the mystic arts is as old as civilization. The sorcerers of antiquity called the use of this language spells. But if that word offends your modern sensibilities, you can call it a program. Call it a program. The source code that shapes reality. We harness energy drawn from other dimensions of the multiverse to cast spells, to conjure shields and weapons, to make magic.
Even if my fingers could do that, my hands would just be waving in the air. I mean, how do I get from here to there?
How did you get to reattach severed nerves and put a human spine back together, bone by bone?
Study and practice, years of it.
So that's right out of the movie Doctor Strange. It's a Marvel superhero, okay? And this woman is teaching him all about the mystic arts and how it's good, getting advice from things in other realms, dimensions, whatever, and using that power in this realm. It's new agey and, all kinds of strange stuff. But it's just, my point is she's talking about spells are no different than a program, like a computer program, because she wanted to put it in our terms, for the person who's not into that type of thing, so that we can understand it. So spells are programs. Well, let's take a look at spells and programs. Programs are numbers and mathematical equations, basically, that come together to become something that we can physically see. At least something that we actually see and use as a tool, right? Well, spells are no different than a program in that sense, because you use a spell or a curse or whatever as basically a tool, a means to an end, whatever, to an end result. Now, that is very interesting if you think about it. And I'm not saying that in a good way either. I'm not endorsing any of this, okay? But I'm saying that these people are basically telling you what they're doing, okay? And the Bible really backs this up. I've said it before, Revelation, it just told you straight up that these kings of the earth and these merchants of the earth use sorcery to deceive the whole world. Sorcery, pharmacia, whatever, medications, well, the fallen angels taught the cutting of roots, to make medicines, drugs, right? Stuff like that. Enchantments. That's all in the same whole bracket, okay? With magic and spells and all that sorcery, okay? According to the Bible. I'm not going by, I'm not reading outside it. I'm saying literally, this even makes sense in the Bible. So that's really the point I wanted to drive home, is that technology now is being pushed as basically magic, okay? I mean, just right there in a Doctor Strange movie. And in a Thor movie, when he explained how his world works, it's basically science. It's not magic, it's science when he explains it to Iron Man. And that's how he sums it up. So our scientists, technically, in today's society, our wizards. And you ever notice how people worship science nowadays? They literally worship it. Like, science is greater than religion. Science is greater than Christ. Oh, we definitely see that. That happens quite a bit. So people are constantly worshiping at the altar of science. Because, well, science has to advance, We can do all kinds of things with science, It sounds like we're trying to build a utopia with our own hands. I mean, think about that. Doesn't that sound like Babylon? We're just rebuilding it. And you got these quantum computers now where they're actually sending information through a porthole into another realm and back into this one, and they're bringing back knowledge from another dimension. That's what quantum computers do. Okay? D-wave quantum computers. Look that up because it's very, very strange. And it fits right in with what this woman just said. She's getting power from another realm, the multiverse, whatever you want to call it. And she's using that power. So she doesn't physically know where she's getting it from. She just knows that she's using that power, like she's in control. Now, who gives her that power? She doesn't really know. Just like I don't really know how my iPad is working. I don't really know. It's just working. It's cool technology. But what is powering it at a molecular, small, microscopic, at the very smallest level? What is giving this technology life, basically? And can it be like a machine? Could a robot be given a spirit from another dimension or from hell, a demonic possession? I think so. And that's kind of one of the thoughts that I think about sometimes too. Would the Antichrist perhaps be a CGI, or not a CGI, AI robot? I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go too deep into this. And if that robot came to life, could it have a possessed type of body, like being possessed by another entity from another dimension, basically Satan or the Antichrist, whatever demonic thing it is, That's something to think about. But for now, I want you to listen to this thing. I really cut it down because this guy I disagree with some of the things he said, so I just took the parts that I can agree with because he had a lot of good points too. But I just wanted to point out or play some of the stuff that this guy says, and the audio is not the best, but he has some good points. So check this out.
If we had someone from 200 years in the past, if we were able to bring them to the year 2014 and show them all the technology that we currently possess in this day and age, they would think that what they were seeing was magic. Because over 200 years ago, technology really wasn't a word or concept that people were familiar with. Okay? To them, technology is magic. Okay? So what does that mean? It means cell phones. Okay? Do you know how your cell phone works? Okay? Sure, there is a technological explanation for how your cell phone works. But at the end of the day, it's magic. Okay? Here's something that has its own power source, first of all, because it has a battery in it. So, It doesn't need to be plugged into a wall. It doesn't need to be plugged into anything. It wirelessly receives sound. Okay? Do you know how magical that is? Do you know how magical it is that the internet exists in the air around us and that we have Wi-Fi modems, movies and videos and music and websites, and all this data is just floating around us and penetrating us, okay, through Wi-Fi, okay? And it's magic, okay? Do you understand how your Wi-Fi modem works? Do you? I mean, you can know the scientific explanation for why and how Wi-Fi works. But at the end of the day, it is magic, okay? Magic. Technology is magic. As a matter of fact, it was Arthur C. Clarke who said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And he's right. He's completely right. Like I said before, if you were to go 2,000 years in the past and show someone a laptop, okay, that they would think it was magic, all right, that you could have moving pictures, okay, a video camera. Do you know how a video camera works? Okay. You know how film works. You can learn how film works, and that makes sense. But can you believe that digital video also exists? Do you know how it works? Do you know how your camera can take a video? Do you know the science fact explanation behind the technology? Do you? Because you can learn the technology behind how it works. Okay? You can learn that. But at the end of the day, it is magic. Okay? The fact that you can make a recording of the present so that people in the future can look into the past, that is magic. Okay? Technology is magic. Technology is sorcery. Okay? People don't understand it. You know, in the past, we used to have people known as wizards and warlocks, okay, who would create things in their cauldrons. Nowadays, we call those people scientists, okay? Those people, instead of wearing wizard's robes and pointy hats, they're now wearing lab coats and glasses, okay? Scientists in laboratories making drugs are doing magic. Okay, that technology is magical as well. Okay? And as a matter of fact, even cooking is alchemy. Okay? If you've ever made soup before, you're doing alchemy. Cooking any kind of food with fire is alchemy. Okay? You're causing a chemical reaction to happen to something else, changing the properties, and then you're consuming it. It's alchemy. But the moral of the story is that technology is magic. Okay? Like I said, if you brought anyone from 300 years ago, 400 years ago, 500 years ago, and you brought them to our day and age in the year 2014, and you showed them all the technology we have at our disposal, they would think it was magic.
So this guy has a lot of good points. He was kind of a new ager in a lot of things, and I ain't going to really promote all that stuff, so I didn't really want to talk about that. But he did have some good points in that realm, and he did actually go on to talk more about how Jesus might have been using technology to heal and whatever. Anyway, I ain't going to get into that, but he had some good points. Because anyone 200 years ago would look at the things that we see today and do as magic. And they would also, this is something something else I wanted to point out. They would also see the things that we see as sin. There was a lot of Christians 200 years ago that would be up in arms going crazy because of some of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis and we see on the internet and hear about. That's absolutely just over-the-top sin. Okay? And this all kind of plays into the sorcery thing, too, because people on the internet nowadays, they communicate with one another. They fight over things. You know, Christians constantly fight with each other and, well, other groups, too. And they just, you know, the internet is starting. I'm starting to see that the internet is starting to become more evil and mean and just cold-hearted. And people are just being cruel to each other because they don't have to face each other. I mean, yes, they can call each other and have a video, Skype call, all this, but they're technically not in the same room with one another. So that means that it's easier for a person to take a cheap shot at you, you know, and say all this terrible stuff about you because they know that they don't have to see you at the end of the day. So they don't have to have the guts to face you and say that, you know. But I'm not going to get into all that. I'm just saying that it seems like that there's like a theme going, like it's been getting worse over time. But the internet seems to be more, you know, full of, it's just a cluster. It's a mess. It's filled up with all kinds of untruths, you know, deceptions and everything. And you have to sort through all of this crap in order to find any truth on the internet. And that's the point, I think. I think what's going to happen is a global government will step in and say, we need to govern the truth. We need to be the controllers of what is truth. Because there's just so much untruth and fake news out there that we have to govern that. And that's another time when the sorcery steps in, because they will deceive us and take advantage of that power. I mean, just give it time. No matter what, that group is going to take advantage of that. And it's all part of a world government system that they already had planned. They've talked about this in books. It's not like it's new. But I'm not here to start talking about all the world government and all that and scaring anybody or whatever. I'm just saying that these are things to watch for. These are things to be aware of. Because the Bible does say to come out of Babylon, specifically to Christians. So that's something I always think about. That line in the Bible just sticks with me, and it's always stuck with me. Why is God saying to come out of her? It's talking about the whore. That's what the Bible calls it, so don't get mad at me for saying those words. The Bible says that. Anyway, it's saying to come out of her, to his people. Because we're not supposed to be lovers of the world. Because whoever loves the world, God, you know, hates God, basically. They're not of God, you know. Because our kingdom is not of this world as Christians. So it's just interesting to think about that, because at one point technology might overwhelm us and basically take control. And then we will have to leave all of our technology. I think that might be part of Babylon. Because if they start making us take the RFID chip, you know, in our head and our hand, which is the mark or whatever, I don't know for a fact that is, but it sure seems that way. Well, that could be a system that we can't be a part of. So then at that point, we're going to have to back out of the technology system and go into the wilderness. And now here's another clip that almost makes that my point for me about Bitcoin. They call it the magic money, basically. And it's interesting how it's, just listen to how they talk about this in this commercial.
Bitcoin is generally difficult to explain. You want to try and break it down as simple as you can.
This is a story about the biggest financial revolution the world has ever seen. It's called Bitcoin.
With the exception of actually handing physical cash to you, generally we have to rely on third parties for lots of different payments. And what Bitcoin does is allow us to do all of those things without any third parties.
All of these traditional services that we're used to control who's allowed to have an account, who can send money from who. With Bitcoin, you don't have to ask for permission.
Bitcoin, nobody gets to turn it off. If you have the private key, you get to access it and use it.
Imagine a world where we all have complete control over our money.
Bitcoin does get into this niche of the underserviced people in the banking industry. They can now have the equivalent of a bank in their cell phone.
For some, the revolution has already begun.
Anybody in this room, you can now send and receive any amount of money with anyone, anywhere in the world right now, and there's nothing that anybody can do to stop that. That was not possible before the invention of Bitcoin.
Around the world, people are experiencing the unique power of Bitcoin.
Some of the areas where Bitcoin has been most popular so far is China, Argentina, Iran.
The true use of Bitcoin is to give you financial privacy, which I find extremely important.
Discover the magic of Bitcoin.
Personally, I perceive Bitcoin like a freedom-enhancing tool.
Bitcoin allows you to send and receive money with anyone, anywhere in the world, just like magic. I'm at a loss for words because it's that exciting and that world-changing.
Magic money, the Bitcoin revolution.
So there you have it. It's magic money. It's not really there. It's in the internet. It's not really anywhere. It doesn't really exist. We as people give it value because we want to be part of this matrix, this invisible system that is being developed all around us. And it's basically a sorcery system. It's an illusion that we give power. And that's very interesting to think about. You could analyze that for like a year in itself. That we're giving this internet, this whole technological thing, its power. All of us together. You know, I think the Bible calls a great group of people a sea. You know, it's like a sea of people. And it's really interesting. And the beast comes up out of the sea. And that's another interesting thing, you know. And what if, I don't know, it's just something to think about. What if that we're basically giving power to the kingdom of the Antichrist every day by buying into this technology and by keeping it going? Because imagine if we all just agreed one day, this will never happen, but to just not use a computer, not use the internet, not use nothing technological anymore, and just go back to building wood cabins and living off the land and being, you know, as God intended us, right? Imagine how much power the global government would lose immediately. There wouldn't be a global government. There'd be just complete chaos for them. They would have to have the police state. They would have to bring in the military all around the world instantly to take us down and start killing people in the streets because we wouldn't use the system of the Antichrist that's being built all around us right away. Because you can bet the Antichrist is going to use the technological system against us through smart TV, smart everything that's watching us, that's tracking us. You know, it's you know, you can't get Windows 10 without it sending notifications back to to Microsoft and anything, you know, Google, all these different things. They're always, you know, data searching for every little bit of data that they can use to analyze or whatever about what you're doing on the internet. Everything that we do is on the internet being tracked, basically. And they're using every bit of information for something, somewhere. Somebody's analyzing that. Something's going on all the time. There's people who have jobs just analyzing data. And as long as that's happening, it's never going to stop. And eventually, a world government will be put in place, and an Antichrist will take over, and he will rule over the people. And he will be just like Satan, the accuser in heaven, accusing the brethren both day and night. And he's going to use the spy grid to do it. And also, keep an eye on this Bitcoin stuff, because that could be somehow put in a chip, because everyone's starting to get microchipped. I mean, it's starting to become part of the regular news thing, where RFID chips are being put in people. And that could be part of the mark of the beast. Bitcoin could definitely be the cashless society that the beast system is going to use. And it'll be convenient for anybody, because now you don't have to use a credit card, you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is just swipe your hand, and it's easy and convenient for you. And I'm sure they'll put benefits on these RFID chips. They're already doing it's beneficial in some way. They're trying to show you the benefits of it. But in the end, it's not going to be beneficial to have a chip in your hand, because that's not how God created you. You're not born with a chip in your hand, okay? There's a reason for that. Because God don't want you enslaved to somebody, to a world government or whatever. It's just something I just wanted to talk about, something people just need to, think about, analyze, look into, research this stuff. This is just something to really think about, because all this stuff ties together. Everything really ties together nowadays. And it all ties together with what the Bible is warning us about. And we're getting there. We're almost to the time when things are going to go really crazy. And it's not going to be good for Christians. I mean, we're going to be hated by all nations. Jesus said so. So just keep that in mind. So I hope you enjoyed my blabbering about science and sorcery and technology. And that's pretty much all I have for this show. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, I hear ya, but I gotta check my phone. I gotta check my phone. I gotta check my phone. I hear ya.
If you like Christian-based truther alternative music that is not the same old thing, you may like this. Check out the brand new single from the Bible Underground, Tranquilizer Trance. Download it today on iTunes, Amazon, Google, or wherever you buy music. It's a song that speaks to our social media generation and reflects on the selfie, selfish culture that is so prevalent today. So please check it out, and God bless.
I'm a narcissist. Come and get my selfie stick. Did ya like my post? Did ya like my feed? Did ya read it all? Did ya watch me bleed? My Facebook, my Twitter, social media is about me. You can keep on looking down now.
If you like this show, you can also find us under Leo Rutledge on YouTube. That's all capital letters, Leo Rutledge on YouTube. Shows like this in audio will be up on the YouTube channel, as well as video shows where I talk about other stuff as well. So check out Fringianity on YouTube under Leo Rutledge. Also, please check out the Fringianity Underground podcast Facebook group for show posts and Fringianity YouTube show posts as well. Also check out the Bible Underground. The Bible Underground is a electronic truther Christian / rock band music project that I'm working on. I'd really like your support. So if you enjoy my show, please support my music. I'm on Amazon, iTunes, wherever you download your music. And there's also a Facebook page and a YouTube channel devoted to the Bible Underground. So please check them out. So if you've listened through all of that, I want to say thank you for putting up with me. And thank you for listening to the show. And thank you for showing your support. God bless.